Hey everyone, welcome back to another Beast of the Mesozoic review. Well, the wait is finally over. Just over a year after the Kickstarter ended, the Ceratopsians series has finally shipped, and the wait was worth it. These figures are truly amazing. Seriously, these figures are amazing. I have not been able to put them down since I got them. They are just a joy to play with. Which brings us to today's review, where we'll be looking at not one, but two figures from Wave 1, the Kickstarter exclusive Monoclonius and the Juvenile Centrosaurus. Unfortunately, if you did not order the Monoclonius when the Kickstarter was going on, that figure is no longer available. The Centrosaurus is the mainline release. Both these figures share the same mold. It retails for $49.99, and I'll leave a link to Creative Beast Studios in the description. Getting back to these two figures, if you're a fan of dinosaurs growing up in the 80s, these two figures sport retro paint schemes and matching box art to tickle your nostalgic nether regions. So let's take a look at the box art of the Kickstarter Monoclonius. First, let me just move this Juvenile Centrosaurus off to the side. You can see right here, the Monoclonius is based on the old Tycho Dino Riders Monoclonius. And just look at the art on this box. It is beautiful. David actually got the original artist, Ezra Tucker, to do this new box art. He did the box art on the original Dino Riders Monoclonius. And this artwork is just beautiful. I love the retro feel of it. You got the volcano erupting in the background. You got the Beast of the Mesozoic logo up here in the corner. And then down here, this is where the Tycho logo would be, when it says Dinosaur Action Figures. I just love the vibe this packaging is giving off. And then on the top of the box, it's just like the old packaging of the Dino Riders. You have a couple different pictures of the Monoclonius on the top. Turn around the side, you got a nice another full art picture of the Monoclonius. And then turning around, the back of the box is very similar to the old Tycho figures. Just truly amazing. I love the homage that David did with this Kickstarter exclusive. It is beautiful. Even the inside of the packaging is very reminiscent of the old Dino Riders. You have that like pinkish background in there. The only difference is I kind of wish the packaging was like that window style opening. There was a big flap in the front, then you could see the toy and all the accessories on the inside, but still really, really cool. And then on the back of the box, you got the Wave 1 checklist. I normally don't spend this much time on packaging, but there's so much love put into this. We definitely have to spend some time on this. So with the Dino Riders packaging out of the way, let's bring out the packaging to the Juvenile Centrosaurus. Now this one comes in the standard packaging that all the rest of the Beast of the Mesozoic figures will be shipping in. Now, if you grew up in the 80s, there was a documentary hosted by Christopher Reeves called Dinosaur, and it had some really amazing stop motion work by Phil Tippett. He actually originally did the footage, I think, in 1984 in his garage, and that 10-minute short was called Prehistoric Beast, is absolutely amazing, and this Monoclonius is a homage to that. And if you have not seen that, I'll leave a link in the description to that Phil Tippett video. You definitely need to check it out if you're a dinosaur fan. It is truly fantastic to watch. So this box comes with a sleeve over it with some beautiful artwork of the Centrosaurus browsing on some flowers in the forest. And if you've seen the video I've been talking about, you know what happens to this poor fellow. And then turning it around, you got the Beast of the Mesozoic logo on the front with a nice silhouette of the Triceratops, and on the back you get some more artwork of the Monoclonius and another checklist for the other Ceratopsians in this wave. And you also do get collector cards with these figures. Here is the collector card for the Monoclonius, and those are really, really nice. You got some information on the back of the card. Monoclonius is not really considered a valid species, considered a juvenile form of Centrosaurus. And here is the Centrosaurus artwork. Absolutely fantastic. Really nice quality on these cards. And you get some information on Centrosaurus apertus on the back. So enough about the packaging. Let's take a closer look at these amazing looking figures. So let's start off with a nice 360-degree view of these figures. You can see the posability that these figures have. Each figure has 19 points of articulation. I have to say the joints are really, really tight on these figures. They hold poses really well. Definitely a major upgrade compared to the Beast of the Mesozoic Raptors. they're just so much fun to mess around with. I just love articulated dinosaur figures. Don't get me wrong, the static pose models that we get from like Safari and PNS. So those figures are great, but man, just to mess around and just have your figures in different poses is such a great feeling. So let's start off with a couple quick measurements since both figures are the same mold. Only need to measure one. We'll just do the Monoclonius. This figure is just about 10 1/4 inches long from the tip of the tail to the tip of the beak, and just about 4 inches tall to the top of the frills. So Centrosaurus in real life was around 18 feet long. So if you use the adult measurement, that would put this figure somewhere in the 121 scale range. But since these are juveniles, you go with a slightly smaller length, like around 15 to 16 feet, this will put them nicely in that 118 scale range. Now, when you get these figures out of the packaging, the tails are not attached. There are instructions that come with them to tell you to dip the tail in hot water for a few seconds or use a hair dryer to soften it up. Don't do what I did, like I did in the unboxing video, where I'm just trying to forcefully put the tails on that pull joint. It was a workout, and when I had to go back and heat up the tails on the couple of the other figures I couldn't get them on, it was a night and day difference. It made things so much easier. So let's pull the Monoclonius in and take a closer look. The paintwork on this figure is fantastic. A lot of times when you see prototypes of figures, when you get them in hand, they don't really match up to what we see in the prototypes. But I have to say, on all these figures I got from Wave 1, they look pretty much identical to their prototypes, which is absolutely fantastic. I mean, like, I'm just like been staring at these since I've got these. The paintwork is just so well done. Like, look at all the scale detail on the frill of this Monoclonius. Let me just adjust my light a little bit. Even the horns on the top of the frill have some beautiful dry brushing to bring out all that detail. All these large scales on top of the skull right here are decked out in gray paint. The eye is painted in yellow with a black pupil. The nasal horn is painted in gray with some nice dark dry brushing over it. Even the beak has that gray and dry brushing look. And even inside the mouth, let me see if my light can pick it up. Not really. The inside of the mouth is painted with a little bit of a gloss coat to give it that wet look. And if you really, really look in there, I don't think we're able to pick this up on camera. There's actually teeth sculpted into the jaws right there. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful work. Even some more gray paint right here on all the knobs. On the side of the frill, you got a nice bright blue half circle right here on the frill, and then even the back. There's just so much dry brushing and washes over these just to make all this detail pop. Even right here along the shoulders, along the back, you have these large scales, and they're picked out in this gray paint. You have this nice bright teal color stripe going down to the neck right here. Then it goes into green. Here's more of that green on the sides of the stomach and sides of the legs. And the underneath is just that bright Dino Riders blue. And I just absolutely love this thing. And then going down to the hands, you can see the front feet are beautifully sculpted. They have the correct number of toes and toe claws shown, like on the current understanding of ceratopsian feet. And then going down to the back legs, same thing. You got all these beautifully painted toe claws. They have a little bit of a brown dry brushing over it to bring out the detail, and just absolutely beautiful. The stripe along the back has a little bit of brown mixed into it. They have more of that brown stripe along the top of the tail. I just absolutely love it. Look at all the scale work on this figure. Just the detail on this is just really, really astounding. And the articulation is absolutely great. You can get a lot of range of motion by playing around with these things. And like I said earlier, the joints are really tight and they hold the pose. So the mouth has articulation. Now the beak does not close completely flush. That is one tiny, tiny critique. I just wish the mouth's closed a little bit more flush, but you can get a decent openage, I guess that's a word, with the mouth articulation. And then going down to the head can rotate really, really well on this ball joint right here. Then you have some nice neck articulation. You just have to, some of the joints are really tight. If they're tight on your figure, use a hair dryer, soften them up a little bit. You don't want to snap anything. So for the neck articulation, you can get the neck to look up pretty high. It won't go down any further than right here. It bumps up against the chest of this figure, but this neck joint also has articulation, so you can get some really wild head poses with the articulation on the head and neck, and then going down to the front legs. They can move forwards, they can move backwards, they can swing out just a little bit. Then you have some elbow articulation, which if you play around with it, you can rotate it 360 degrees. And then going down the front feet, you have some nice tiltage and rotation for the front feet. And going down to the hind legs can move back pretty far, and they can move forward a decent amount. They kind of rub up against the sides of the figure right here, so you want to be careful with that. You don't really want to start scuffing all that paint. And then for the knee articulation, which is extremely tight on this figure, you can get a little motion forward and a little bit of bend going backwards. Then you have a joint right here that allows some forward motion and a little bit of backwards motion. And then same thing with the feet. They can rotate, and they have some tiltage built in. And then you have a joint for the mid part of the body. You could get some really wild twist with the articulation for the midpoint. And then going down to the tail. Tail is just on a ball joint. You can get some nice up and down movement, and the tail can rotate 360 degrees, and some really nice side to side motion. So yeah, the articulation on these figures is really good. And now moving on to the Juvenile Centrosaurus. Now both these figures do share the same pattern, but obviously they are vastly different, and this figure is a nice homage to the Phil Tippett stop motion short Prehistoric Beast. The main body coloration is this really dark chocolate brown. Then you have this rusty orange stripe and rust orange markings all over the head, and that stripe is really well done. You can see all these large scale picked out in gray paint. You have more of that rusty orange color that slowly blends down to the hind and front legs. Really, really well done. And then underneath, you have some beautiful belly scales and bright yellow paint. Looks fantastic. And look, even underneath the throat, just all that dry brushing and washes really bring out all this beautiful detail on these figures. And just look at that head sculpt. That is beautiful. For Centrosaurus being such a well-known ceratopsian, it's amazing that there's like barely any figures of this dinosaur. So I'm so happy to have two of these to my collection. Actually, well, technically three, because I will be getting the Wave 2 large Centrosaurus in the future. You can see the nose horn is done in gray. You have a little bit of black paint at the tip of the horn. It'd be kind of cool if that was red. For those of you that have seen the Prehistoric Beast short, and then just look at all that rusty orange bleeding through and all that dry brushing. The eyes painted in yellow with a black pupil, and all those large scales are decked out in gray paint. Even the horns on top of the frill are beautifully sculpted. I mean, just the scale work on these figures are just absolutely fantastic. Just look at, I just love the coloration on this. Even the front feet, there's some nice dark washes over there, and just still amazed by the scale detail. You're gonna hear me gush about these figures on all these reviews because I am just that blown away by them. Then along the back, you have a little bit of like a maroon color to highlight the large scales along the back that go down almost to the tip of the tail. So beautifully, really well done. Both these figures are excellent, so no need to go over the articulation on this. It is exactly the same as the Monoclonius. And just one more thing to point out, the articulation. I love the center of gravity on these figures. You can get some wild poses with them. So let's move on with some comparisons, and let's start off with the series that started this whole thing. Here it is with the Beast of the Mesozoic Raptor series. Dromaeosaurus, the Raptor series, is a fantastic series of figures, but when you compare it next to these Ceratopsians, I just feel like the quality and the joints are a lot better. So definitely David is getting some experience with these dinosaur figures, and I cannot wait for that Tyrannosaur series. You will notice the Raptors are huge next to these Ceratopsians. That's because the Raptor series was sculpted in 1/6 scale, and these are sculpted in 1/18 scale. And next up is the precursor to the Beast of the Mesozoic Ceratopsian. Here it is with the old Rosaurus Carnage collection. Triceratops, like these were really cool when they came out back in the day, but they had one major problem. They were really, really fragile. Like the joints are really loose on this. Like I barely can get this Triceratops to stand. The arms are incredibly loose, but the articulation on these new figures from David absolutely blow these figures away. And next up is the Papo Pentaceratops, and it can do a nice Monoclonius impression by standing up on its hind legs. And next up is the Safari Limited Pseudoceratops. And next up is the PNSO Triceratops, and let's get one more. Here that is with the large vinyl Triceratops from PNSO. Let me try to maneuver this thing better into shot, and this will give you an idea of how big the adult Triceratops that is coming in Wave 3 from Beast of the Mesozoic is going to be. I think that one actually is going to be a little bit bigger than this one, but it really gives you the sense and size of these later figures that are coming. And lastly, can't do a Ceratopsian comparison without at least comparing it to one Rex figure. Here it is with the PNSO Wilson T-Rex. And obviously this T-Rex is way, way too small to scale with these Centrosaurus, and man, I still say I can't wait for the Tyrannosaur series. That's a couple years away, but man, that adult T-Rex in that series is going to be an absolute monster. And you know what, since I have these figures out, here it is with the smallest figure in the wave, the Ceratops, and here it is with one of the larger figures in the wave. Here it is with the Ceratops, and yeah, this gives you a real sense of how big these figures are going to get in the larger waves. So final thoughts on these two figures. If you couldn't figure out by now, I am in absolutely love with this line. I think these figures are truly fantastic. They are really no flaws in my eyes. Like I said, the tiniest little nitpick I had, I just kind of wish the mouths closed a little bit more snug, just so they don't have that like slightly open look, but that's it. Love the articulation. The paintwork is fantastic. They look exactly like the prototypes. The sculpting detail is amazing. Absolutely bang up job. So slow round of applause for David for these figures. Truly amazing. And like I said at the beginning of the review, there is a link in the description to Creative Beast Studios if you want to order the Juvenile Centrosaurus, which retails for $49.99. Unfortunately, if you did not get your hands on the Kickstarter Monoclonius, it is sold out, and the only way to get your hands on one is paying high secondary market prices, probably on eBay or something. So that will do it for the review. I still have some PNSO, some Reborn stuff, and probably Jurassic World stuff coming in over the next few weeks. And of course, I still have a bunch more of these Beasts of the Mesozoic Ceratopsians reviews, so be on the lookout for more of those reviews later on this week. And as always, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, show your support by hitting that subscription button just below the video. Each subscription helps out the channel tremendously, and it's greatly appreciated. I'll see you guys for the next one.